I would like to share with you about art therapy groups. Art making is often a solitary activity, and I'm going to be sharing about art making groups from the Art Therapy Sourcebook by Cathy Malchiodi. And however, art is very self-absorbing, and you might think of someone in a studio, personal activity, but actually there's the Navajo people, for example, created elaborate paintings together. Collaboration, healing rituals often had support, and visual objects and images were often in history, given for honor of groups or closure, memorable experiences, and even art therapy programs or art medicine groups in hospitals for people with whether it's physical, mental illnesses, or just different kinds of agencies, shelters, survivors, groups with alcohol or drug dependencies, life-threatening illness like cancer, AIDS. And there's many different people could be involved. You could run the program by an art therapist or psychologist, social worker, counselor, or even an artist in residence. And the potential is for many things. First of all, obviously, instilling hope. Group members can share positive experiences about overcoming illness, solving problems, talking about recovery, trauma, loss, illness, family conflicts, or addictions. And these are special qualities of groups. And these are called like curative factors. These are helping cure. So the group potential, not just for making something, just for aesthetic value, but actually to deeply transform the individuals and our pain of, as humans and our experiences into something that everybody can kind of like receive the emanation and feel fulfilled in therapeutic healing ways. Another curative property is interaction. So, social support, but also just sharing with each other. Additionally, universality, to see that there's meaning and personal but unique, and sharing common symbols and experiences is a function that reduces isolation. There's communication, mutual concerns, and then of course catharsis, which gets out the painful feelings and expression, whether it's anxiety, fear, depression, or grief and loss, or even just overcoming, distressing or traumatic events. Altruism is kind of like to be able to help and encourages support, and creative activities are able to bring out positive, helpful applications. And so there's many types of art therapy groups. It could be called like, but usually they're grouped into two categories, could be art psychotherapy group, art studio or open studio group. And it's a mixture. There's many like different, there's the art psychotherapy groups are, there was other groups that came about at that time in the 1960s, like encounter groups, and they're mainly for expressing feelings and problems and conflicts and achieving insights, resolving painful emotions or experiences. And these are focusing on group dynamics, communication, and also the identifications. Specifically could be like breast cancer support group, or there could be an 8-week group for women. Or group mural or symbols of health, or designing life-size body images, and whether it's people who are seriously ill or battered by spouses, abused children, recovering alcoholics, teenagers with behavioral problems, or HIV or AIDS, or grieving a loss of someone, children of alcoholics, breast cancer survivors like mentioned before. And these could be time limited, like for a certain number of sessions, even just one or two, or even just one long day intensive, or it could be meeting regularly, but the group may change as people come and go. And there's usually a similar format: an opening discussion, experience process, and like the experience itself, the process, and then discussing post-experience. And there could be an introduction about the theme or activity in the beginning, but besides for the directive, there's also non-directive groups where there's ongoing projects that could be participants may be working on, whether it's construction or painting or mixed media, drawings. And in the middle part, there could be designed activities like the same art or individuals, and there's many examples of whether or not there's guidance. And of course, at the end, there's a discussion. Everyone could talk a little bit about their impressions and also if there was a theme, how it relates. And also, this collaborative work could be something that helps with, there's a leadership who's directing the group, working together, and communication, interaction, negotiation, and various types of exchange. And so that also can come up, and people can write about or talk about the process of making art together and coming together, and the content of the finished work. The other the author also is talking about specifically sexual abuse survivors, ages 32 to 54, who from when they were children, for anxiety, depression, other difficulties, and other unresolved issues. Over an 8-week course, they met at a community mental health center for 90-minute sessions, and also with counseling to see and offer this opportunity. And they'd never experienced art therapy before, but they want to be part of a support group. And many art therapy groups don't have a weekly structure, but in this case, the themes were revolving around the agency's goals for them. So it was time limited, and because they had no experience, things like collage materials, oil pastels, and felt markers were enough, like the simple. And it was, you can't fully describe everything that experienced, but most observed the importance and the value of coming together to make art. Or pretty much all of them, but some of them really could observe it in a great way, that it served as a safe way to communicate that that which was kept secret, told not to talk about it. And it also helped with reclaiming the positive parts of childhood. And, they may have been forgotten or replaced by difficult memories of betrayal and distrust. And the play and creativity contributed to camaraderie. And they were encouraged to really come together and there's really a power of art to heal trauma and feelings. And the women felt sharing their images also had, with others who had similar experiences, helped reinforce they're not alone. And it also helped to express that which was difficult to talk about, including feelings about the abusers. And the common techniques used is group drawings or paintings or collages. It's a catalyst for the group interaction and group discussion of images. And, for example, could depict themselves as animals or portray a perfect world. And then there's dyad drawings, which is two, a mother and a child could work together, or a couple. It could be a nonverbal conversation on the paper. The therapist could work with, a sculpture with them, a collage or a building. And then there's family art therapy, which is working parents, children, and families are essentially groups. So it functions similarly. In the 1960s and 70s, there was a lot of evaluations on identifying common themes among families by Hanna Yaksa Kwiatkowska. And her work with families at National Institute of Mental Health led to growth and development of family art therapy techniques at around the same time that family therapy was becoming very popular in the United States. So it could explore family interactions, communication styles, family of origin, past family history, current family problems, or individual family members. And it provides the experience of communication and expression, and also opportunity to view how they interact with each other and how, everyone comes together to solve problems or make decisions. Images and narratives also can give insight onto the whole and individuals. And it could be also for a variety of situations, because you could have someone who's an identified patient and could be in distress and creating problems, but actually it's true that the whole family is distressed. Or there could be like everyone coping around a terminally ill child or a handicapped member, an alcoholic parent, troubled adolescent. And in each case, the whole family is kind of involved in this problem, envisioning a solution and identify how they feel about the patient. And can really help with expression and communication, where there could otherwise be not interest or intimidation in the regular therapies. And it could also be, there's an example about how a family is recovering from domestic violence. A brother and sister were effectively able to communicate their experience of domestic violence through art and participate in a family of meaningful activity, participate as a family in meaningful activities designed to help them overcome the trauma and the loss. And there's a long example here given from Nora and her children after domestic violence. And they used Little Red Riding Hood as a theme, and they talked about it, and they really were able to employ a lot of good information and feel safe. And also it helped when they would deal with the fear that and the undesirable aspects of coming up in the court, violating restrictions on his presence, and even just like being able to write statements and a fantasy of perhaps a new mate or partner, and being able to also like, what will it be like in a year, and discussing behaviors to do with unhappiness, and discussing the therapist understanding and the significance of the violent man. And it's important to remember a collage or a drawing doesn't solve complex issues, but by using tasks requiring group participation, it's possible to see how the family might interact in general. And some of the stress about talking is alleviated through these practices. And some of the ways that family art techniques are, based on the needs of the family, and, but there could be nonverbal team art. So this is when you choose a partner and create a joint drawing together, maybe two parents, two sons, so mother and older son and the father and younger son, and they each make a signaling without talking or signaling. They have create a picture together, and then they can talk to each other about it. And then also family drawing and collage. So it's given a large piece of paper, and it's verbal or nonverbal, and draw yourself living together on an island, and everyone shares their impressions, or it might be through a collage. And then there's interviews after to discuss the impressions after completion. And it could be possible to, depending on context and purpose of the art, to emphasize understanding of the content and meaning of the image in a process and dynamics with the family members. There's something called genograms, which is when individual families are able to construct a family tree information about the last 3 generations. And it could also help to see like how we relate to the spouse, the parents, the children. And it's like single shapes, maybe circles or squares, but also it could be different lines. And you could learn so much about the creative way that the person is able to construct the dynamics between the members. And now I'll talk about the art studio or open studio. And this is somewhat different. It's they're usually perceived as artists rather than patients, and they're using the properties of art, capitalizing on the self-expression, exploration, and healing. And it has its roots in the hospital settings in the 40s and 50s. It was offered through art therapy was offered to hospitalized patients through therapeutic art studios. And these look very similar to the art school or adult education classes, and most of the art therapists had taught studio classes. Patients who attend them could usually come and go, it's open, and while the therapy studio was available and the therapist was present. And whether it's groups or individuals, drawings, paintings, sculptures, crafts, it's part of rehab. And it's cathartic and helps to express internal conflict and achieve insights necessary to recovery. And it's the process itself is expressing, discovering, recognizing, achieving insight without words. And art can help through expression without using nonverbal communication. So it's less about traditional talk therapy in order to uncover and develop meaning. So some examples are the art studio at Metro Health Medical Center in Cleveland, Ohio, for medically ill and physically disabled people since 1967. And it's the uniqueness of each person's creative process is really focused on, creative arts experiences, which is experimentation, learning new information, developing motor cognitive skills, enhancing creative thinking through art making. And there's accessible material and information. And the focus is on expressive creative experience, so that the discussion of feelings is stimulated, promoting socialization, communication, interaction with others. And it's, you could, at the end of a group therapy, maybe participants share feelings about the art experience and reflect each other's artwork, which initiates interaction and socialization with the therapist's guidance. And they have sessions, and, the materials are available. And you could choose any material. There might be a theme like make a mask or maybe Egyptian art. And the outpatient groups are psychoeducational, not only therapeutic, but you learn something about art history too. And self-expression and creativity is the atmosphere. And of course, also, you get to share your feedback at the end. And so there's elements of collaboration, even if you're working on your own project, and supportive observation about each other's efforts is also often made time for. And then the Open Studio project in Chicago is run by artists, art therapists, and they provide programs that introduce participants to the value of the creative process. It's transcending distinctions of age, class, gender, and background in order to have self-awareness, empathy, and satisfaction in working with one's own ideas, which and art expression is being beneficial to health and well-being. There's like drop-in groups and so on. And the philosophy underscores the principle that art making on its own is essentially a healing process, and that an art studio with working artists supports this process. And then there's the Creative Artist Growth Center in the Creative Growth Art Center in Oakland, California, for over 20 years at the time of the writing of this book. So I'll try to tell you when that was. Published 1975. Yeah? Or 1998? Hard to tell. Anyway, so any adult who's physically, mentally, emotionally disabled and interested in art can attend the program. It's a nonprofit visual arts organization providing studio space. And participants are defined as artists rather than clients or patients. And you don't have to be involved in any art from before. And the program offers 60 classes weekly and provides, this could all be different from the time of the writing of this book, but I'm just giving information, about this. And if anyone's interested, to look into these things in your community, perhaps, or start one, maybe get funding. There are special tools and equipment for those with disabilities at the center I just spoke about, the Creative Growth Art Center. And there's also a gallery. Some have become renowned artists in their own right. For example, Dwight McIntosh and others who have gone there, where there is showcased undeniable talent and skill, even if these are people who have been called retarded or maybe not very politically correct, but that's what's written here. And the creative activity in the form of art has contributed to their sense of well-being and health. And many people reclaim what they've been called a hopeless case, and they reclaim themselves. And then there is creating community through art, which is Art Street in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they build community, increase self-esteem, self-sufficiency, and hope among homeless individuals and adults and families. It's in a large studio space, and anyone can drop in and make art. And since it opened in the mid-1990s, hundreds of people each year come, and there's a core group of regulars for all the weekly sessions, and others use it during life transitions, whether they're between homes or staying in nearby shelters. And all ages are welcome. Mothers and children particularly are encouraged. And the participants come from a variety of backgrounds, where the approach is basically the power of community is an agent to change and health. And naturally, people are validated for their creativity by attending. So there's one more way, which is you have to experience firsthand, because an art therapy intensive is the opportunity to experience artist therapy within the span of a day, weekend, or several days, like an intensive of anything. And the goal is to help people learn more about creative and therapeutic potentials of art making, because it's not possible to give everything into one little instruction set of what it's like to work in a group, or specific exercises. But it is different than working alone, and encourages interaction between members and offers a unique way to experience art therapy and the creative value of art activities in a group.